Hello and welcome to Season 3, Episode 20 of The Dive. I am Kobe, joined by Azael and Mark Z. We found him. He's back once again.
I was not my fault for sure that I wasn't on the 2 episodes ago when I was supposed to be on. Definitely not my fault.
Well, I'm glad you're back either way. It's been a while since we've had Mark here. And today we are going to be talking about Rift Rivals. I know it's on everyone's mind. Just happened this weekend. You kind
Not on my mind.
You kind of give us the smackdown.
It's completely blank.
No,
not on my mind anymore.
Not even.
It is all I think about. I'm traumatized. Yeah, I don't know. Rift Rivals was fun. It was a fun event.
Yeah,
I had a lot of fun.
It started out really fun.
Well, you finally won a show match, even though we found out that you've actually won more than we've said.
How did you not know that you had won any show matches, by the way?
Huh? Well, I just forgot. They were so long ago.
But you prided, you like, I guess you shouldn't prided. You dwelt on your losses so much.
Yeah.
Because it had been a lot in a row, you know. Have you ever been in that situation where you're playing ranked, you start to lose a lot in a row?
And you're like, am I the worst ranked player ever?
Yeah, you just
never lost before.
Just never remember the good times.
No, I know it's true.
Yeah, I won the Season 1 World Championship. They had a Riders vs. Pros. Freak reminded me of that one.
Okay.
And then Deficio reminded me, apparently I won another April Fool's one. So
okay.
So what you're like, are you 4 and 5 now?
I won 3 or
3.
Or if you
Doom
count
bots.
Doom bots.
I was counting. Are we not ever? Let's make an official ruling.
Never counting Doom
Okay.
bots.
NBC.
PvE. We don't really count those.
Doom bots has been wiped from the slate. Get it out of there.
Yeah, it was pretty fun though to be on stage with Reggie and Steve
You guys
and
slapped them,
Dyrus and all of them. And my team, like we were talking about last episode of The Dive, like everyone was super scared that we were gonna lose, right? And they're like, "Oh my god,
Except
all these
for
guys
me,
are still playing,
the one
challengers and
shining
stuff."
light.
So we are like, "All right, we need to smash these fools."
I mean, you drafted a pretty meta dumb team comp.
So we went in as hard as possible, and we're like, we got to steal away the Sejuani, so they can't use that. I was like, okay, no problem. And Reggie's like, I'm gonna play Karma in mid lane, super safe, and we popped off, and we destroyed the G2 Pike. We were able to do it for all of
them and the balance team. You together.
And that's the last time that Pike's gonna be played without the nerfs, because actually NA is gonna still be 9-12.
Right.
So if an NA team wants to play it, then it might be the case.
Just it's not going to be good in the future, guys. You're not good at it now. Just don't play NA Pike.
Also, we can look forward to a great dive commercial made by the EU4 lads.
Yeah,
because we won the bet. And you doubted me for betting on that.
I did.
It's a good thing that I bet on that and not on the actual matches.
Well, you would have been a crazy person to be like, no, give us the...
Well, yeah, that's the whole...
He was doubting me.
The whole reason that we bet on the show match, though, is because we knew that the actual matches were going to be real.
You have to bet on something, so at least bet on the thing you might win.
Yeah. I had faith. We crushed them. But to get into the actual matches, obviously, Team Liquid, most people are talking about it as kind of being the shining light. Cloud9, I don't really want to get into talking about too much personally, because I think it's pretty useless to speculate on how they would have done had they not been sick. Even on day 1, apparently they were quite sick, and then Sneaky wasn't there for the rest of the games. So to me, that's not to really give them a pass. They did very poorly, but what is there to really talk about that's interesting about Blabber playing mid lane and stuff? I don't really think that they're worth discussing too much, but mostly I want to focus on TSM and TL.
I disagree. C9 would have crushed this event if they were there. Okay. Now that we get to say that, now that the Europeans have gone back across the pond, we can be like, yeah, we would have been fantastic if only C9 was feeling healthy.
It's kind of funny though, because
I don't believe it.
It highlights one of the things that a lot of people have been talking about since G2 flexes players around the map so much, and more of the European teams have started to follow in G2's footstep and try and do that. Like Origin had Patrick play mid lane. I mean, we were forced into a situation like that, so it's not like the team was prepared for it. But having players play other lanes looked really bad for our teams, and I can relate to that. Like, I can only play jungle. I'm a pretty bad Phil, like I'm a full division lower or something as a Phil player.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what team would actually be the best flex team. in terms of like being able to move their players around in NA. I don't think it's C9, even though they were the only one to attempt it at Rift Rivals.
I feel like we actually so we already have teams that are doing the solo lane flex stuff. That I think is easy to do.
That's easy.
But this is a discussion I was having with some of the European players and some of the NA players as well. Just the idea that it's like, what North American bot laner is going to be that guy who's flexing to mid or whatever, right?
Piglet.
Like, I mean, Piglet's gone, obviously. I know some people said Turtle, but I mean, Turtle, like, you know, he is a solo queue guy who has played those other roles and stuff, but like, I don't know that he would do that.
Turtle for sure could.
Yeah.
I think it's less about Turtle in that instance and more like, well, the thing about flexing players is not only do you need to have someone who can go from bot to mid, you need someone who can then go into the bot lane. And I think that's where it would start being difficult for FlyQuest.
But we also, I mean, this discussion kind of started even a couple of years ago, like 2 years ago, we were talking about, there was an interview, I forget which Korean professional player, but was talking about how one of the benefits of their solo queue is that so many of the pro players try super hard in other roles and have really good understandings of other roles and how they're going to play out. Whereas typically, you know, you have someone just focus on their one role and you kind of have an idea how jungle works because everyone, you know, interacts with the jungle. But it really does help so much if multiple players understand multiple roles because you know when your top laner can come for a roam or things like that, or like how this matchup is supposed to play out and how you want to then play around it. And it really does seem like another area to highlight moving forward, especially for a lot of the NA teams should be training maybe players to be more flexible.
I mean, even if you're not just moving players around, even how they move picks around in Europe is so much better. Where like, I don't know what part of the week you're supposed to take out and be like, this is where we try the really crazy stuff. Like the one they flexed Pyke to the jungle, everyone was joking about how that was a troll game, but it actually got them so many favorable matchups for G2 when they put Pyke on Jankos, then they could put the Olaf top into Camille, which was supposed to counterpick, but now it's getting counterpick because you can play Pyke jungle and Olaf.
Well, that's a funny one because I know there's a bunch of NA junglers that play a bunch of Pyke, like Contracts spammed jungle Pyke and stuff like that. So that's actually one that we could do.
But it's like you have to actually tell your team like this is a strat that we're gonna do if we see the right situation. And I think like I would guess in North America there's way too much. Or not, I don't know about exactly way too much, but there's more focus on prepping for general situations and being like, these are our priority picks. This is the you know, the order of champions in terms of what their power level is and how often we want them, this kind of thing. And less about like, well, if they get this matchup, I am absolutely not playing that matchup and we're flexing away from it. Or I have this specific counter pick prepared for this one matchup. And I feel like if there's something we can do, if we can't flex players around quite as much, because that does feel really difficult, at least doing this kind of stuff.
And I mean, that's something where, you know, I've talked to players and coaches and things about scrim culture, and they feel that part of the issue with that sort of stuff, when I ask, well, why don't you guys practice some of this or some of that? Like, this is really good in solo queue and in this matchup, why is no one playing it? They're like, yeah, well, if you play something like one time, you get one game and then it's just going to get banned. And it's like, if you're playing something that's not what they want practice for, what they think everyone else is going to play, which is more the standard picks, that it's going to get banned. So you can have one game of practice on something off meta, and then it'll be banned for the rest of the day in scrims. And that to me, like, is something like, I get it, because it's like, you know, if I'm TSM and Cloud9 is coming in and you're playing only against, like, you know, Zoe jungle and Olaf mid and this and that and like all these other crazy things, then it's like, okay, well, is that really preparing you for your game against Liquid next week? Probably not, right? But there does have to be some time invested into that sort of stuff and an acceptance that like, hey, this will pay dividends on stage. You know, maybe not as consistently, but you know, in specific situations, it can give you a massive advantage, or it can just like help to develop the region, help to develop your team, kind of like on a bigger picture.
Yeah, I think it's like being able to take a hit for that week to be like, oh, this one thing isn't that good, but more about a mentality shift in how you approach scrims beyond like, oh, we're just going to pick the strongest stuff and get the best practice on. I mean, that's what a lot of the G2 and European coaches were talking about, was like when they scrim NA teams, they're just like turbo tryharding in scrims and like always picking the same stuff. They'll run the same comp like 3 times in a row in scrims. And they're like, what the hell is this? Like, where's the experimentation? Where's like the learning in terms of champions coming from? Because it feels like we're maybe too focused on like, we're going to learn macro. So we're going to all play the exact same champs every game so we can learn macro, and then someone throws a wrench in that plan and plays Pyke jungle, and like, well, who cares what macro you learned because they had a great pick.
Yeah, it seems really weird to hear that about in scrims they'll just ban out any unique thing that you see, because it seems like, yes, you won't get your standard practice that you're looking for, but what if the other team is onto something? You're their scrim partner, like you learn it at the same time, yes, from the other end, but it seems like that would also be beneficial. Like, okay, so this is your scrim pack for the week. What stops you from benefiting from the unique pick or whatever that they're using?
I mean, I've definitely been in that situation when I was coaching where, like, I remember we scrimmed TSM one time and they ran, everyone knew Sivir was the strongest thing in the meta, and we were like just trying other stuff. We were trying Sivir counters, and like they would play Sivir every single game, and we would try all these different things. And then like eventually Piglet got tilted because he's like, I'm sick of playing into Sivir.
Yeah.
And then you start banning. Like, it's just one of those things where it's so hard to separate the emotion of like, oh yeah, we'll experiment, and then it gets clapped, and it's like, let's stop experimenting. Or you're playing against someone who's in that mentality, and then their experiment works, and you're like, well, we don't want to learn that right now. We want to learn what we want to learn. So get out of here with this.
Yeah.
So it's, I think, kind of that cultural difference where in Europe, when someone troll picks and is experimenting, it's probably even on the enemy team received with a more open mind as well as on their own team.
And I think it has to be something where you're on the same page for both sides, right? Like, I think, if you both go into it and both teams are like, hey, I think that, Illaoi is going to be really good in 9-13, let's start practicing it, then maybe they're going to trade games, and that's okay. But like an example that I was given is Anivia, right? Or picks like that where people are like, well, only Froggen's ever going to play that. No one else is going to play that. So I don't want to play against Anivia. Okay, great. You played Anivia one game. Now it's banned for the rest of the day, right? Like that sort of thing was given as an example. And there's other examples with that where people feel like, no, this is like your pocket pick. This is not me preparing me for the other teams. This is preparing me only for you and this specific pick. But I do think that really limits them.
Yeah, I think the difference between for Europe is like, I'm not quite sure it feels like pocket picks to me, Like a lot of it is just general flexing of meta champions as well as like having multiple pocket picks. So it's not like, this is my Anivia. It's like, oh, this is my Pyke and also my Olaf and my like something else. And you just eventually you build up this pool where it's like, it's not a pocket pick. You just have a million picks that you want to play.
Yeah, for sure. But getting into kind of the overall picture for Rift Rivals. So Liquid went 3-1. I think
woo.
It's safe to say that they were nice shirt, by the way, Mark. They were by far the best performing North American team. A lot of the European teams, even having talked to some of the players and the coaches and stuff, were pretty high on Liquid, thinking that they're a very good team and that they can certainly compete. Liquid was able to show that. They are in sole ownership of first place back from week 5. They obviously showed to be the best team at Rift Rivals very clearly. They were, not only were they 3-1, you can argue certainly the legitimacy of their first win against G2. A lot of people were saying, that's just pure troll game. I do agree. A lot of that was pretty troll. But even, like their most recent win against G2 in the Gauntlet was serious picks. They were extremely close to beating Fnatic as well on day 1, and they kind of threw that game. So, I think they can be happy with their individual tournament. Like they were pretty close to even 4-0ing, and certainly showed why they are back-to-back champions, why they were finalists at MSI. They can compete with the European teams, and I think that is exciting, especially the game that they did actually beat G2. I think it was cool to see them playing Yasuo. It was cool to see them playing against a serious comp and actually being able to take down a team that a lot of people consider to be best in the world right now.
Yeah, especially that game to me was one of the brightest spots, I think, of the tournament for just NA in general, because it was Team Liquid stepping a bit outside of the super normal stuff, right? Using the Cloud9 combination that they had used in LCS and as well Academy, and using it effectively. They did mess up the first 2v2 mid, but after that, we saw a lot of effective combinations on caps with the Gragas and Yasuo.
Yeah, I'm glad they kept going, like not get dissuaded because you messed it up once. Like that's the whole point of the comp, and if you have to keep going there. But I liked what I saw at Liquid as well, like not just skill-wise, but stylistically. I mean, we're talking so much about flex picks and experimenting, and Team Liquid's maybe the one team where I'm like, stay the hell away from all of that. Like, you are bog standard team, you're boring, and that's great. I love it. Like, please stay boring. Like, if you want to like learn more and branch out a little bit, that's fine. But like, I don't want.
Mark's like, but be home by 8 o'clock. Yeah, don't go staying out.
You have an identity. You know who you are.
Hours.
Don't go. go to college and experiment. All right, you know what you are.
Oh my god.
So like, I think they're a team that, they like
Similar to SKT or Fnatic.
Yeah, like they are who they are, and that's great. And that's who I want them to be. They can become faster. They can become a little more aggressive. They can learn new things like a Gragas Yasuo, but I don't think that they're one of the teams that needs to take a big lesson from Rift Rivals other than like we're on the right track.
Yeah, I mean, Doublelift doesn't need to be playing mid lane and stuff, right? Like, I think you can play standard, but again, as you say, you can take some of those lessons in that it's good to push the pace of the game, that you can't just sit back very clearly, as TSM and a lot of these teams did experience. If you sit back and you concede everything, well, you don't get a chance to come back in the game later against these top level teams that are playing pretty quickly and playing for counter picks and playing, very, very kind of aggressive styles. But overall, certainly, I think TL should be pretty happy. It was nice to see that our best team is competitive against them. And I think that gives me hope for Team Liquid going into Worlds. Certainly that MSI wasn't just kind of like a one-off fluke. Mm-hmm. And I think that is very exciting.
Yeah. I'm for the rest of the tournament, I mean, and even some Team Liquid too, one of the most worrying things to me were just mechanical mistakes that a lot of our teams are making. And that definitely got me worried. Because, so Cloud9 was sick. TSM has had a kind of a rough start to summer where people thought they were going to pick up right after they left off in spring. But definitely has been rocky, and it looked like it was continuing in Rift Rivals.
Do you think mechanics were a bigger problem or macro?
I think it was execution of plays and mechanics, because there were decent setups where there would just be a dive that went completely wrong, and there would you can have fine setups of trading objectives across the map or something like that, but everything looks so much worse and can look like bad macro afterwards if you mess up the play that you set up.
That's
so
fair.
I think it was the baseline errors.
So I saw Crumbs tweeted something similar, but like I kind of had the feeling like where I was most disappointed was our macro, because, and this is why I wish I had stats for it, but it was like a couple of the games we were even in kills, but down 5K. And like every time we would go for a play, it would be like, oh, 2 turrets are gone topside. And we were down pressure so consistently in this games. And maybe that is, mechanics in laning phase where you're just losing lanes. So when you go for plays, you naturally lose more. So like I wasn't quite able to tell how much, or if that was like, anecdotal where I was seeing it in some games and kind of forgetting the games where it's like, oh, we're 0-10 failing plays, haha. So it's hard for me to know for sure, but I definitely was really disappointed in, I think, some of the TSM games and some of the C9 games where it's like, oh, we're trading kills evenly across the map, but we're just down so far. And a lot of the times it was because once we want to fight, it's like we're at our inner turret.
Mm-hmm. I was under the impression that they were generally missed opportunities because of misplays.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a bit of column A, a bit of column B, right? Like there's,
pick a side.
There's so many of these games were so one-sided that it doesn't happen just because of one little misplay, and it doesn't happen just because you're messing up a little bit in macro, right? It's like, okay, well, you're probably losing all your lanes, and you're getting outplayed in the actual execution of the fights, and your macro probably isn't as good, right? TSM, to their credit, did have one really good game against Fnatic. The Acadian Elise game. That gave me some hope for them as far as coming out of day one. They were playing all this late game stuff. It clearly wasn't working. They got absolutely blasted. They come out with this Yuumi, Elise, Aurelia, Lucian. It's like all early mid game. Get in your opponent's face. They actually, went for this dive top that failed, but they pulled it off, but they didn't really execute it super well. Cocoon hit minion, blah, 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 blah. They gave over a trade kill, but it was nice to see that it's like, okay, that didn't dissuade them. They continued pushing, they continued actually being aggressive and making plays. And the detractors from this game will certainly point that it was, against Stan, it was against the sub. And there is some legitimacy to that. But this is the kind of style that I want to see TSM playing regardless. I think that this is the style that they can be extremely effective with. They have such talented solo laners. You have, Acadian who can be playing very aggressive. Sven can play some of these early game champions as well. So it feels to me like TSM should be kind of taking that as a lesson and looking to play more aggressive, not going back to the Azirs as much, not going back to this sort of kind of sit back and scale style, because it didn't even come close to working against these top teams.
Oh, yeah. I think that was by far TSM's best game.
Yeah. And
they were running no tank, so they had to keep making aggressive plays. And while they did fail some, I think that is the important lesson, is that like they kept on making them and kept on looking for them, because there is not another option, another way to win this game. And that was a hard comp to execute. So I thought that was definitely some good signs. And then if you put that one kind of side by side with the one after where Grig is on Sejuani, that was really rough, because they were like,
that was a lot of failed.
They were missing, like he wouldn't buy sweeper, would
mid 2v2s,
walk over wards, mixed executions on all these 2v2s in mid, all these missed ultimates. Like that definitely looked much worse. So I think this is still such a big issue for TSM, is figuring out their jungle situation, because it doesn't seem like they have gotten a lot closer to making up their mind.
Yeah.
They're still switching back and forth so much. And if you're doing that, you're cutting your practice time in the little pieces, because you have to split between both players. Even if they're watching behind the other one, it's really not the same. So I really think they need to have a unified team moving forward very soon, because we're heading towards the end of summer already.
And not just in the jungle. Like we all loved their playstyle in spring, and then like, why did you all stop playing Aurelia and Sylas when a couple patches ago when they weren't nerfed? And like, everyone else in the league is playing those. You can double flex them. You were playing hyper like aggressive champions in the mid and top lane and could flex for matchups. And then the Acadian was aggressive and would play to your top side of the map. Like, where did that play style go in summer? I mean, I know part of it is you're swapping junglers, but like even the picks aren't the same. And it seems like they're trying to branch out in play style. And I just want them to look at Rift Rivals, look at what happened, look at what you were in spring, and just like try to be the best version of what you were starting to become in spring.
Yeah. I mean, very clearly, like I had, it's interesting because I think most analysts at least will agree that like the late game style is not going to work for TSM internationally. I definitely did get a lot of tweets from some fans that were saying I was not giving enough credit to TSM, at Rift Rivals. So like I did some digging into some of the stats to see like, okay, like is this actually true? Were some of the games closer than I thought? I mean, just to put it into context. Like the difference between how they performed at LCS and how they performed at Rift Rivals, like was so enormous. The average goal difference at 25, for TSM in NA is positive 715. At Rift Rivals, their average goal differential is negative 5,403 at 25 minutes. So like that is the most extreme one. But even at 20, on average, down 4,734 gold. At 15, an average goal deficit of over 2,500, right? Like this is clearly not working, and this is not to shit on TSM. This is because I think that they have the quality of players that they can actually succeed, but they clearly need to make a shift in play style. They took like 0 first dragons. They had 1 first turret. They had, like 1 first blood, right? Like they weren't getting anything done. And that is really, really concerning for a team whose goals has always been international success.
And there are so few games at Rift Rivals that, of course, that is going to make, their super bad ones are going to make the stats. So I would say like, yes, the
4 and 5 were super bad.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so you got to look at the one good game that we're talking about, the Elise game there with Acadian. And try and play off that for the strengths and build on the strengths, because the other ones were so bad that it's going to drag everything down into the.
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear that like, so TSM can have games like when you look back to the Azir game coming into Rift Rivals, in an LCS. I can't remember who they're playing right now. I want to say it was Echo Fox or something like that, but it was a 50-minute game. I could be having.
Yeah.
I could actually maybe even just check, or Kobe can bring it up. But anyway. And, they can have those kind of games in North America, if you're playing against the lower quality teams, and maybe you're not going to get punished and you can pull that off. And Bjergsen ended up having this insane Azir game and, closing it out. But, this is very clearly shown that like what they're doing right now is not good enough for international play, right? And they have to actually change the way that they're playing the game if they want to succeed at Worlds, if they want to, really have those goals. I believe that TSM, just based off pure talent, can do well in North America and very likely qualify for Worlds. But I don't believe that like if they maintain the certain play style that they're doing right now, that they will get out of groups. I don't believe that at all.
All right, 9-13 then. This patch is not going to be for the LCS this week, by the way. It's being postponed 1 week because of Rift Rivals, I think, but it is live for solo queue, and it is time for the solo queue hot takes. My first one, which I enjoyed, my couple games that I played while taking a break from TFT. were all
Taking a break from TFT.
they were all 3 games jungle Sylas, because Sylas did get some buffs back in this patch, and the previous nerfs did not hit jungle Sylas as hard as they hit mid lane Sylas. He's actually so fun to do in the jungle.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The Q nerf from the previous patch was only on minions, or was it monsters and minions that did 70% reduce?
I have to go look at it, but I think it was just the minions.
Yeah.
But I have to go look at it. But because it felt fine, so I was maxing Q.
Right.
QW it should be the max. I know some people go for the E, but there's a much higher win rate on the Kingslayer, and the burst healing execution is amazing coming from a jungler. The first clear, your cooldowns are pretty long. So the first clear is a little bit slower than you would think. Maybe you have to kite back a little bit on some of the camps. But after that, it's actually super powerful. So I would recommend for jungle experimenters, try your hand at some Sylas. As soon as you get your runic echoes, you basically feel like a solo laner. And I just went for 1v1s with other solo laners. And as long as you have a good ult to steal from someone, then you can come out ahead.
Did you try and 1v1 the Tentacle Queen Illaoi?
I did not.
We're talking about.
I haven't seen an Illaoi in months, Mark. Many months.
I remade an account at the start of this, or maybe it was last season when they redid like runes and all that stuff to give like I wanted to get the new player experience. And I was one tricking Illaoi, and so I'm very happy to see what I would consider pretty significant buffs to her.
I think so.
There's some changes as well. Like there's, it doesn't last as long like the Test of Spirit, but it also can't get broken off by like attacking Illaoi, so it actually stays on a lot longer. And then the big change is the attacks, instead of being once every 10 seconds, they're every 5, 4, and 3 seconds, scaling down with levels. So like that's literally double at level 1, the number of tentacle attacks that are going to be coming down the laning phase that you have to try and dodge and stuff.
Yeah, so, those are like the AI automated ones, though. Are those really that powerful?
They're pretty useful in a team fight.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people... Illaoi's actually... I mean, this is going to sound crazy, but I watched a lot of Quas in Academy, and Challenger, and he played a lot of Illaoi, and it's actually pretty strong in team fight situations because you just sit there and you fish around objectives with your E, and if you ever land one, you slow them, they end up spawning tentacles all around them. They take a big burst damage just from the clone that you're hitting, the phantom thing. And then that allows you an opportunity to potentially engage or force the objective. And now when they're trying to recall, they dodge the first one and you had 8 seconds to recall. So you could actually recall pretty easily. It did keep spawning more, but like it wasn't that hard to avoid it. Now, like you just like literally gonna have to run back to base if you get chunked out. And you can't try and hit her to drop it or anything like that. So I think it makes her a lot stronger in that regard, as well as minimum damage and all this stuff. Yeah. More tentacles from her R's, just like giant buffs all around to her. So she was already very powerful in melee matchups, and these are just better numbers, things all around.
I mean, I think Illaoi has always had a really strong lane in certain melee matchups. I think where Illaoi always struggles to me is like engaging. I think she's amazing counter engage. If it's a team that has to dive onto you, it's hard to have anything better than Illaoi because they have to run through you and then you're ulting them all. That's where I think it's really strong. But it can be sometimes tough for her to kind of get into the back line, and actually get that damage down. But Illaoi definitely pretty interesting. One of the things that I had seen actually make some of the biggest difference though is, so they did a responsiveness pass. This isn't even in the buffs, but they actually changed how Jarvan's EQ works, how Kennen's E works, and Tryndamere E works, and those are now like much more responsive. The abilities apply more quickly, and that actually was like a huge win rate spike for a lot of those champions. In high elo, the flag and drag change alone made Jarvan go up over 4% win rate. So that to me is kind of like the big, oh god, Kennen and J4, which are already really popular and competitive, actually just got a lot better. And the like responsiveness type things are more significant buffs in high elo and at pro play, where people are actually able to make better use of that than it is at lower elo.
Aren't we talking at lower elos right now?
Yeah, we're supposed to be talking solo queue.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
you guys won't notice. You're too bad, viewers.
I mean, even for the all elo change, J4 still went up like 3%, right? So these are still really big buffs, and those are ones that I'm kind of looking at. But my solo queue thing that I'm still worried about, even though it has nothing to do with 913, is Mordekaiser. Because every time I play against Mordekaiser, I'm tilted.
What's wrong?
Ultimate lasts too long. You can't get away.
Just kill him. Come back. That's all you got to
There's
do.
no escaping him, Mark.
He's still really strong after the like hot fix
Yeah.
or whatever were to him. I'm not exactly sure what the answer should be. Whenever I don't know what the answer is, then you just take a lot of CC, stun him up a lot. But yeah, the ult thing is just so hard to get around because he's gonna.
You can QSS it, right?
Yeah. But you have to build a QSS.
There's like a million champs, like Skarner and stuff. You got to build.
I would say that it's definitely worth it though, if you're playing against the Mordekaiser.
He's mostly
build the
magic
QSS.
damage, right? As well.
Yeah,
it's not that bad.
But I mean, the thing is, it depends what the rest of the team is, right? If there's other CC that's great to QSS, then that feels good. But like, Mord doesn't have to ult the carry, right? This is one of the strongest things about it. Like when I've played Mord, if you're having a bad game, you actually just start ulting the support every single fight and just killing them because it lasts so long. It's basically inescapable. Like you're going to kill one person on their team if it's not a super strong person who can solo kill you, right? Like, so all right, great. I'm just gonna kill your Lulu every team fight or whatever. And it's like sweet QSS you have there, bro, against the Zed.
The biggest thing for me actually is on the team playing with the Mordekaiser. Also, I need to like spam with pings so the rest of the team knows because half of the time, or especially early on in the game, like the team would go in and Mordekaiser would ult someone, and then the team would still take the 4v4. Mordekaiser would win his 1v1, but come out to a losing team on the 4v4 on the outside and be like, guys, what happened over here? So I had to start like spamming them like, Mord's going to win that, like spam ping them back off to just like wait around for him to win and come back out, and then we can have our 5v4.
That's funny.
Because everyone was like, let's go, charge behind this Mordekaiser who's super fed. And then he's gone. He's gone also from the front line. And our supporters sitting there like, wait a second.
You give him like one little last Lulu ult as he goes. Like, there you go. Have fun. You need that.
But yeah, so it definitely plays both ways for the team fights, especially. It's funny because I feel like people are still learning how to play around it from both edges.
Yeah, I mean, you control your teammates pretty hard too. I was watching some high-low solo queue, and there was like a super fed Hecarim, right? And he's diving back to like one-shot the AD, and his Mord, who's beating his ass off, just ults the AD to take him out of the fight as Hecarim's ulting in on him. And it was just like, oh no. So there's definitely some coordination stuff that's pretty important about who you're going to ult, when you're going to ult, because your teammates can't hit him either, right? If you're playing multiple dive comps, but I'm not sure if Mord is actually enabled now for this coming week, but I think we'll see Mord in pro for sure. It just seems so strong in top lane right now. And, I think that there's so many ways to be successful with it. If you're super fed, you can just ult their carry and 1v1 them every team fight. If you're not, you can just take a key engage member out or whatever. But like, it feels like your baseline level of effectiveness is so high. There's very few champions where I'm just absolutely inting, and I still feel like, yep, I'm going to do a lot in every single team fight, and Mord is one of them, right? Like, I literally had a game where I was playing a blind pick, and I played Mord versus Mord, and I got blasted. I was like 0-8, and I still felt like I was doing great in every team fight. I'm killing someone. Like, I'm not saying I'm doing as much as the other Mord, but but like, it's very rare that you have a champion that no matter how behind you are, it still feels really useful. Because even at the worst case scenario, in that game, I could ult their really fed AD, and if he doesn't have a QSS, I just run around in a circle and take him out of a team fight.
Well, it's like a lot of tanks. It's like why tanks are always good. It's like, oh, I might have gotten destroyed, but I threw my Sejuani ult, and I'm really useful. And so like it's cool. Well, I don't know about cool, but it's effective that he can be a bruiser in the top lane and mess people up in 1v1. If you fall behind, you're like, well, I'm still effective, kind of like a tank.
Yeah, and I mean, it feels even more extreme almost because like tanks get really far behind. Yes, you still have your CC at least, but it feels like they can get popped. Whereas this is like you're choosing who you're 1v1ing, right? So you can kind of like it's a choose your own adventure, right? You can like, am I really fed? Okay, I'll take the really fed guy. Am I weak as hell? All right, come on, support. Let's 1v1.
Or do you just like a challenge, Azael?
Yeah,
that's true too.
You always 1v1 the top laner. You pick him every time, no matter what.
One of my other favorite parts is just all the nerfs to all the champions that we've been seeing permaban. So yeah, the LCS this week is not on 913, but the Sona, Karmi, Sejuani, Sivir.
Army Sejuani.
The Garmy
I'm trying to make like a group name for them.
Oh, okay.
There's too many of them to like mold them all into one. So I get a
What
little.
about Pike? You get Pike in there?
NA wasn't really part of our group, but like that 4 group, like Sejuani was permanently in the jungle for like every single game, first pick and stuff like that. And then the support bands were Sona, Karma, and Lux. At least Sona and Karma, I felt like, got taken down a pretty decent notch with these nerfs. So I feel like they're well justified. And everyone's been complaining about Sivir for, a month now as the premier AD carry. So I feel like that was a pretty good, sweeping changes.
Yeah. Plus, Essence Reaver also, I mean, so the cost got increased. It has a BF in it. I would say I generally consider a nerf to the item just because it's harder to build towards. I think one of the things that was so strong about Essence Reaver, on the previous patch was just that you always have enough gold for some pieces, of the Essence Reaver, right? It's like, even if I die early, I can get a couple long swords or something. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to have something. BF is always a little bit harder to get to, but it's still going to be an extremely powerful item when you complete it. The build path is just a little bit more difficult to pull off, so that alongside some other Sivir nerfs may make her early game a little bit more punishable, right? Which I think makes sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are relatively minor though. Like the Sivir one is some mana cost and was it attack speed growth or something, and Sejuani's health growth and
I think they're well placed though.
Yeah,
I think these ones needed a pass. So
yeah, I think I'm glad to see them getting hit a little bit, but not completely gutted. I don't know. Do we have anything else, or is it time for Jatt-Watch? What changes did he make in the patch? Udyr. I don't know if we want to talk about it.
Well, okay, so everyone thought Jatt's gonna like super buff Phoenix, but looking into it, it actually he didn't buff Phoenix enough for it to like take over. He gave it like a baby buff there, which is nice, but
everything else got similar buffs as well.
Yeah, I mean the last level thing is not going to be important really in 90% of games because Udyr's a super early game oriented champion. So you want to snowball your games. You usually want to have them over before your level 18, and your last 2 points, they didn't mean anything before. Now they can mean a tiny bit. He did take down the Tiger damage a little bit. So that's a little bit of it was a very small nerf to Tiger stance Udyr. But I know people who did not play him were always complained about how much damage my Tiger did early.
I'm playing Udyr.
So
Let me have something.
So I guess they're happy. Yeah, but
I was the biggest cheesy. You remember you could double proc and then you would get red pot?
Yeah.
When they had red pot in top lane Udyr with Ignite. Oh, that felt so good. I miss those days.
Well, they're even weaker now, Mark. There's no red pot, and they they took down the total attack
with the wrath
damage ratio.
Yeah.
Your only buy.
But I mean, yeah, if you want to touch on Udyr, actually, it did. The changes weren't that big, and they were net negative. So
just wait.
So
more coming, I'm sure.
Not a big deal. Yeah, I have to take another try at that one. Add another 20 damage on Phoenix Stance, then maybe it'll be good.
He's going to slowly creep in 20 damage, so we keep being like, that's probably not enough. That's probably not enough. And it's like rank 1, 100 damage. What the hell?
Yeah, I think that about does it for 913, though.
Yeah.
We'll be on LCS on that patch next week. This week, though, got some good matchups. Team Liquid versus Cloud9. Hot off of Rift Rivals. Hopefully, Cloud9 will have been able to rest up and get healthy and get some good practice in back with Sneaky, because that's a super exciting one, right? Those are 2 top teams going head to head. Team Liquid, I think, deserve their number 1 spot right now for sure with the Rift Rivals performance, and this is going to be first thing in line to see if they can keep hold on number 1 in NA.
Yeah, and I mean, I think for Cloud9, they would really like to get a big win against the top team, right? They had their pretty close game against TSM that they lost, right? And especially coming off Rift Rivals, I think rebuilding some faith would be really, really nice for them. I'm excited to see if Yasuo is going to be contested at all, because Yasuo has been pretty big for Cloud9, and the fact that Jensen brought it out makes me kind of excited that we may be seeing more Yasuo stuff in North America. And I always just think that's such a fun champion to watch in competitive play. So I'm hoping that more teams are going to be kind of, fighting them for that a little bit in pick ban, and that maybe we'll get to see that left open and kind of see people's answer to it as well.
Yeah, I'm excited to see C9 back, but they did lose to CLG as well before Rift Rivals. So, like, I think I think they're still going to be a good team come playoffs and that kind of stuff. But right now they could be struggling a little bit, especially if they didn't get very effective practice. So I'm a little worried that Team Liquid kind of just goes in there and lays the smackdown on them. I'm also interested in TSM versus 100 Thieves for two reasons. One, is 100 Thieves actually surging? Because they did pick up some wins and it's been nice, but like, is that momentum going to continue through that kind of break week where you have
they're surging. It could end, but 3 wins in a row.
It's 3 wins in a row. But
this team had lost like 12 games straight, Mark. 3 wins in a row is a surge.
I believe 14 or something. But yeah, like this, they're surging right now, but there was a break and they're going up against a strong opponent in TSM. And then I'm also interested in TSM if they're going to pick a jungler anytime soon. I would love if they did that and just, I mean, like I have the one I think it should be, but like either way, I think it should be Acadian because I don't know. I've seen higher highs out of him. I think he's more inconsistent as well. But like as we're talking about with like, well, you just need some pop off potential. And I feel like that's usually not really there in the competitive scene with Greg. I know he pops off in solo queue all the time.
Yeah,
but that's my opinion. But either way, just pick one and like that's our guy, and we're going to build around him now.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be really interesting. I am pretty excited for seeing if 100 Thieves can actually kind of continue this momentum they've built up a little bit. Certainly, you know, my big question for TSM is going to be what version of TSM are you showing us coming out of this? We talked a lot about this earlier, but like, you know, if they come out and it's a 0 Ezreal and you win a long game against 100 Thieves, I don't care, right? Like that's not exciting to me as far as like building back up confidence for international play after Rift Rivals. I want to see them, you know, going early game, going aggressive, laying the smackdown on teams. That is whoever's going to be at the top of the standings. That's the style I want to be seeing. I want to see, you know, us have 3 strong teams going towards international play, right? And I don't care who it is, but I want to see teams, you know, really being able to kind of embrace what we learned at Rift Rivals and try to learn from that, right?
Have you seen caster assignments yet? Do you know if you're casting this game?
I have no idea.
I was gonna say you should boo them in the draft phase if they lock in.
I'm not going to boo them in the draft.
Boo! Get the whole get the whole crowd. Everyone boo them.
People start coming over the rafters for me.
Azale's win call is, I'm not impressed.
And TSM,
do it over.
In a snoozer. Takedown.
Oh, God.
I actually think one of their best games from the split was the Broken Blade Poppy game where they countered with the Poppy pick.
Yeah.
And so
against Cloud9.
Yeah. And so like I do see that this team can be versatile also. Like they can also play, you know, with tank frontline and stuff. It's just that they still need to be looking with a proactive mindset because you can have, you know, that tank line on your team while also be looking to, you know, create plays with your jungler, with your mid jungle duo, you know, roaming around and stuff like that. So I feel like that there are a lot of pieces here that can come together and it's time, right? Because we're halfway through summer basically.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to not play tanks at all, right? Like that's not my point. My point is that you can't go only scaling and sit back and play that way, right? Like you could play the Azir, but if you're going to play the Azir, I don't want to see a scaling bot lane and top lane and the Sejuani and all this stuff, right? Like if you're going to play the Azir, you know, put it with your aggressive top laner. You have like whatever you're going to play it with your Yuumi or something, and your Lee Sin, and you have Lucian bottom, whatever. That makes more sense to me, right? Whereas, you know, if you're trying to kind of just like survive everything, it doesn't feel like a good way to play the game right now with how good the top teams are at actually snowballing the game and with how much early game gold there is in turret plating. Because you can just get such enormous leads just purely from turret plates. And we saw the LEC teams doing that against a lot of our teams at Rift Rivals. You know, these gold leads where it's like it's 4-4 in kills, but they're up 5K, right? And that's because they've taken every turret plate on the map and they are rich.
Yeah, I think you can still, like you said, play some scaling. Like CLG is a good example of a team where it's like, yeah, we have a scaling mid, and we have a tank jungler, but our bot lane's playing Caitlyn Lux, and they're going to push you in 24/7 and draw all the pressure to them. And so, like, I think if TSM wants to do that, like you said, you can make it work, and the Poppy can work, but it's finding the right situations for it instead of being like, this is our default, which I don't want that to be.
So we check back in on Golden Guardians because they just fell below second, where we have Team Liquid, TSM, C9, CLG, and Optic now all a game above them. But this was definitely one of the teams where we were like putting them up on the pedestal as one of the possible successors or, you know, breaking through to the top echelon. Do you think they're going to pick back up after they left off? Because they had showed a couple different styles. Okay.
I think that they might make playoffs, but I think they are, in my opinion, out of the hunt in terms of like real contenders. I think it was really cool that they had what worked for them, but that's clearly all that they had, or at least to me right now, it looks like that's all they had. So if they're not getting Tahm Kench in good matchups and they're getting, Froggen on the Anivia, they did win that one Aurelia game at the start of the season, but since then they've tried Aurelia and it fell completely flat. So like, I think Golden Guardians are who we thought they were. And I'm more concerned now, like, does Clutch pass them? Does 100 Thieves pass them? Because one's tied and one's one game back. And like we said, 100 Thieves is surging. So, they could actually legitimately fall out of playoff contention if they don't pick it up.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just really so important for them to actually find something else that's going to work for their bot lane because, the Tahm Kench games looked so good, built up a lot of hope for people, but they're 1-4 without Tahm Kench, right? And the one non-Tahm Kench win they had was the Nautilus game, which still wasn't a great game from Illaoi. I think in general, their bot lane has been struggling. I think, their top side of the map has been stronger, but, it has to be like a cohesive team if you're actually hunting for the top. And I feel very similar to Mark that it's certainly possible that they make playoffs. I still think that they very likely would. But, for them to really, truly challenge for a world spot and for a championship, they need to find more things that are going to really work for their bottom lane because it hasn't been feeling like they have been able to match up with some of these other bot lanes that they're running into.
Yeah, I'm super curious to see what the next 2 sets of games look like for them because I know their coaches were talking about how flexible the players are and they're playing these champions because they have these super strong strengths in some unique ones, but they still have other things. So I'm definitely going to keep an eye on the next couple of games to see, what it does look like because I think that they still can do it. I still have faith in the Golden Gamers.
They can go for the championship.
The championship? Whoa, that should be pretty high.
Because we both said we think that they can make playoffs. So what's your
not world contenders? Championship's too hard.
Okay, so
what about? Do you think they have a shot at?
Oh, I think they could. I think they could get in maybe third, bump someone out. I think they have a shot. We'll see it the next 2 games. If the next 2 games look terrible, then I'm selling real quick.
But they're gonna lose to Optic and beat Echo Fox, and you're gonna be in the exact spot at 5-5 now. Going,
if they lose the Optic, maybe I'll sell.
Okay. Optic looks good.
Is there any team that you guys think, like outside of the ones that we discussed, outside of the kind of 3 Rift Rivals teams, that you think could benefit most, essentially, from the lessons learned at Rift Rivals?
Yeah. I think C9 and TSM can both learn a lot because I think that what we saw in spring where they were both really aggressive. They were both like C9 has pulled out interesting picks traditionally all across worlds and stuff like that. And so like having that extra nudge, like go a step further, get even a little wilder is something I think that they can learn. TSM can learn that. Or you said outside the top 3. Mm-hmm. My brain's bad.
So to answer your question, 2 of the top 3.
Outside of the top.
You know what's funny? Actually, I don't think so.
So here, I'll give mine then, because I do think there's one.
Okay.
Scroll all the way to the bottom.
You guys can.
Are you gonna say FlyQuest?
Scroll all the way to the bottom. 10th place FlyQuest, I think, is the one that I'm looking to make a resurgence back to the top, because I think that they are the ones who actually could quickly embrace the lessons from Rift Rivals, and I want to see them actually put that together for some of the wins. I know, like the beginning of the season, I was like, oh man, those are some tough losses, but like they're still looking good in parts of the map, And then every week I was like, all right, well, those are some more tough ones, maybe, whatever. And all of a sudden it stacks up to 7, and I'm like, wow, time flies.
What happened?
But yeah, they've got.
I guess I cut my search off after Clutch, but I do think actually all of the 4 bottom teams would be able to get good takeaways. I think Echo Fox can play more aggressive. Phoenix is a pretty aggro player. Solo can as well.
They're getting Mike Young now.
Mike Young, I think they could learn it. 100 Thieves are a lot more proactive with Ryu and Fake God, so I think that they can learn some of that. Clutch is already kind of like that with weird picks and we play Rumble and we're gonna go crazy and get aggro. So I think them as well as FlyQuest, all 4 of those teams could have some good takeaways. But most of the top teams right now do feel a little bit, I guess, between 4th and 6th feel pretty slow, so to speak. And I still think that that's probably good for those teams with Crown and Power of Evil and stuff.
I think it's a good point, talking about some of the teams towards the bottom, because even going again on the FlyQuest thing, it's the whole idea of like, really, what do you have to lose at this point, right? You're sitting at 1-7, and if you're down near the bottom of the table and you want to try to make it to playoffs, you want to try to turn something around, something needs to change, right? So you may as well shoot your shot. You may as well, see if you can actually, start picking up some wins with a different sort of style, with something that you've learned from Rift Rivals, or really trying to pick up the pace of the game. I think that makes a lot of sense. So, I'll be interested to see, if there's any kind of big shakeups in the standings in the next couple of weeks.
All right. Time for Twitter questions then. We got one here from Bard is Bay. What is the most troll / most effective / most tilting comps that you've seen in Teamfight Tactics so far? That's 3 questions rolled into one. I found Immortal Lucian to be a lot of fun. 1 attack speed, 1 mana, and 1 lifesteal item. What?
I'm just reading it again. I was like,
it's kind of long, yeah.
I mean,
so what is the most troll or most
choose
effective
something,
or most tilting? I think he's just trying to say something that's powerful.
All right, well, let's take
probably
meta things
tilting
out.
if it's against you.
Yeah, let's take meta things out. Like Pike with double Shojin's tilting, right?
Okay.
But like,
if you don't know, PSA,
Yeah.
Pike with double Sojins has got to get nerfed soon.
I think so. You guys know Wes, right?
Yeah.
He's been spamming Rek'Sai. He's in love with Rek'Sai with Shojin and like some extra attack speed items and stuff. And it's actually pretty gross.
What?
Because it burrows and heals so frequently, and they have nothing to attack. So you burrow, you knock someone up, you get like 1 or 2 attacks off, and you burrow again, and you heal. And like if it's
This sounds like a Slark thing from Dota, where people used to be, when that was in, they were like, oh, I can have a 1v9 character where I have Slark at the end, but it takes so long to win.
But the
rounds
thing is, you
and stuff.
can't put items on. You can't make a hype. And the nice thing about TFT is you can make anything dumb. Like you can make hyper carry Blitzcrank. Like if you get,
And then someone moves their carry 1 unit forward and you're countered.
doesn't matter. Your one shots whatever's back there. Just like, anyways, the point is, I've seen it. It can work. I mean, right now no one's playing ranks, so you're probably not up against other people turbo tryharding too.
Yeah.
So like it can work. I thought it was pretty cute when I saw it.
I saw someone doing that. It didn't really work, but like I saw someone doing that with Shojin, but then they also had the, what is it, Lucent Spark or something? The thing that
that's a waste of an item.
So he was like burrowing around and things were casting and taking damage. It was pretty funny, but didn't really see it work out.
This falls into the first part of this question, troll.
Troll,
I didn't say it was good. I just said I've seen it. It can work, and it's funny.
Most tilting. So again, if we're not talking about meta stuff, I've had some pretty big tilters when you go up against like a 6-year-old comp, and every attack from a carry is just missing over and over and over. That's a pretty big tilter. One of the really fun things that I like to play though is just I think like gunslinger stuff is really fun. If you can actually get gunslinger blade master. I had a game with Tristana where I had the Blade of Rune King for a blade master. It had 4 gunslingers and a hurricane and stuff, and it's just spazzing out.
It actually looks like it bugs. Like it's just the bullets just aren't even leaving the gun, but the model's doing the animation.
It's stuff like that is pretty funny. I don't think it's actually that good, but it's there's some pretty fun things you could do.
Yeah, I actually really have been enjoying Blade Masters and Demons. They buffed the Demons.
Mm-hmm. The burn is OP.
Demons is feeling really good right now. So I've been using some spatulas to make other units Demons. Mm-hmm. Just test it out. I mean, just people with high attack speed. You can even put Hurricane on someone. So I think those have been the most fun. Most effective, though, for me has been, I stopped doing this a while ago, is just spamming assassins, getting every sword and every recurve bow that I can.
Sleeper.
You just make infinity edges and recurve items and just throw them onto whatever you 3-starred or your assassin of choice that you got early. And literally any of them, the crits will be, 2K or something. So it will 2-shot. If you have Infinity Edge, and Rapid Fire is my favorite because all the assassins are melee and they clump up. So you want your carry or 3-star or whatever to have the recurve so that you can one-shot multiple things in a row.
On a ninja for the extra damage.
I just think that assassin crit bonus is too high right now because it doesn't really matter what you have back there. It gets crit. It dies.
Even frontline.
Even tanks, yeah.
Yeah, because initially I was countering by like, oh yeah, I'm going to just make a triangle and I'll have tanks on the flanks and the backside, and then the Zed 3-star Zed with a rapid fire jumps back there, and he's like, that one's gone, that one's gone, that one's gone.
I had the most tilting. This was actually the most tilted I think I've been tilted before through like RNG and like, I didn't get my upgrade after wasting 50 gold. I hate this game. The most tilting thing ever happened to me was I was playing against a Sword of the Divine Illaoi, and I was in first place with like.
Sword of the Divine is a waste, by the way.
It's a horrible item, but it insta-procced twice on Illaoi, and it works on her spellcast. So she literally
AoE one shot.
Jumped into my backline. I was at 40 health. I was winning the game. This Illaoi, I got the guy two turns in a row. There's like 5 people left in the game. I get this guy twice in a row. He one-shot both times, insta-proc Illaoi with Sword of the Divine. My whole team's dead, and I get knocked out of the game from first. I was
blasted.
I was beyond tilted. That was the get up and pace and like take a shower, like wash the rage away. It was so bad.
Illaoi with just a couple of needlessly large rods, by the way, is insane.
Yeah.
Is that her ult crits for
1,500,
2-3K? Like it actually gets nutty.
Yeah.
And if you put the double tier item on her, it's one auto cast, one auto cast, one auto cast. So
I'd rather
stuff on
have a
Yasuo,
Spear of
too.
Shojin Pike though.
That's true. You meta slave.
I mean, you're just rolling the dice then. Does your Illaoi get in there and one-shot the Pike before he ults? Or does the Pike then ult and stun lock your Illaoi?
Yeah.
Pike wins.
Yeah. You get 2 Spear Surgeons that just starts with the ult, and then there's never any moving. All right, we got another question here. This one's from Vaughn to be Wild. Simon Vaughn asks, how far ahead would my team of high silver, low gold friends need to start to be able to beat Team Liquid? So if you're saying start at the beginning of the game, he says 20K, 30K, 100K. So it massively depends on what point in the game you're starting. If the team starts 4,000 extra gold at level 1, you will win. I believe you will win for sure. I think you are so broken that like
4,000 is a whole team?
No. 20. He's asking 20K, 30K.
Yeah.
If it's 4,000 each, a 20K lead at level 1. I think if you're playing range champions, it's so easy to win.
Gold?
Yeah.
Yeah. If I'll buy a Warmogs in AFK in lane.
But if you have specific champion, well, you wouldn't have enough health.
I'll buy. I have 4,000. I'll buy a chain vest.
Don't even have close to a chain vest. Chain vest.
I mean, not chain vest. Sorry, Giant's belts. How many? It's 400 health.
You
have base like 600, 500.
You need 3K. You're not going to get there.
Come on.
Whatever. I'll get there eventually. You can't hurt me. I can AFK because I have 1,800 health.
So you think you have to even get to the one full item benchmark? Because 20K is basically you're saying get your item of choice.
I don't even think that you quite need that. Well, maybe. Yeah, for gold, probably.
I think you definitely do. I think you guys are actually
level 1, dude. Level 1 is insane. Can you imagine walking into lane against a Ghostblade base?
Yeah. Can you imagine walking into lane versus double lift as a gold player?
Yeah.
Yeah. You right click them because you have a full item.
Gold players are not that horrible. I don't think that they are that horrible. Like gold players, I can play gold.
There's no out trading, no matter how bad they trade, when they walk into lane with their Bloodthirster and you have your Doran's Blade.
That's lane phase. Then you guys still have to end the game.
I right click the turret.
Yeah, I think like
I'm not buying it. I don't know. I think
the thing is you're
underestimating LCS team.
I think you're underestimating gold players. They're not that god awful.
Well, and I just think that this is not under.
All right. Well, I will
20K gold lead at level 1.
That's what you're really underestimating.
I will put my foot
down. They start with 2,500 gold. I start with 22,500.
I will put my foot down. You have to have a full completed item. You're not going to win with just a BF sword.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah. I'd agree with that.
Yeah, full item. So 20K.
A BF sword is 1,200, right? So 1,300. So you're gonna get. You're saying if everyone is up 5, if the team is up 5K, they would still lose.
Yeah,
we're saying 4 times that amount.
Yeah. 20K.
So you think that 20K is the exact cutoff?
Well, I mean, it's just an arbitrary number because he asked 20K, 30K, 100K.
Yeah, I would say a complete.
I don't think you can get much lower.
Okay, so 15K, or like slightly above that, right? So you essentially
okay,
like 16, 17, whatever gives you, because I know some of the items are a little bit over 3K,
right?
But everyone gets their one full completed item of choice. You like, and I'm not saying with any comp because I do think it's possible to mess it up. But I'm saying if you actually draft some like siege thing and you tell them what to do and they like. I don't know that you can beat like a Caitlyn Lux who have a full item each at level
Now they're
1.
getting coaching too.
Yeah.
That wasn't part of the deal.
Well, I'm
Alright,
making
so
it part of the deal.
maybe,
I'm coaching them.
So here's how they lose with this advantage. Is they get
It says silver, high silver, low gold, by
Yeah.
the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm overrating them. Here's how they lose. They go, we're an item up. Let's go invade and fight and dive. And then they kill themselves like 3 or 4 times because they're just mechanically.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think you're focused so heavily on the lane phase, or like right when they meet. Yeah,
But
they're gonna.
with range, you kill the turret.
Yeah,
that's why I'm saying.
what I'm
range stuff.
thinking like I take, not because I just smash you in laning phase, but like I just get turret plates and I just keep standing in lane and you can never fight me.
All right, let's do it then. I want to see
I would actually
this.
love to see this.
I want to see
I think
this.
LCS players will get blasted.
But how do you get gold on them without leveling them?
What custom?
You have to do like you have to do like a custom server thing or something like that.
Someone at Riot set it up.
But that would be an interesting one.
I like that question.
Yeah.
I think you could end the game very early because I don't think.
It's
Plus,
like
you get so much extra gold if you're taking all the turret plates.
That's what I was
All right,
saying.
what else we got?
Yeah.
All right, here's the last one we got from Blacklisted Famous Reslived. I don't know. Anyway, he says week 3, summer 2018, C9 was 1-5 in 10th place. Week 5, they were still in 10th place with 3-7 record. They went on to get semis at Worlds. Week 3, 2019, 100 Thieves was 1-5. What are the odds 100 Thieves can make a run? LCS playoffs? Azale, are you down to bet? No, I'm not betting the 100 Thieves is going to make the World semifinals, if that's the question.
Yeah, I mean, well, if the question's even like they make a run and make finals of LCS, which is also what happened in summer, I would also bet against that. I felt like that C9 team, when they were losing all those games, it was like...
That was all the roster stuff, and they like benched their main team, and then they came back in.
Right. And like, it's like at the end of the day, it's still Jensen and Sneaky and like Licorice and all these incredible players.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no offense to 100 Thieves players, but like, I don't have the same faith in Fake God, Ryu, Amazing, Afro, and Bang right now that I had in those players, where I was like, oh, just one split ago, they were a top 3 team for most of the split.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, this team's been struggling. They were 10th.
Yeah, and they literally had different players in for the C9 one for a lot of the games. So it's not really fair.
I think they can make the run to play.
But I like this. I like this ending here. Azale down to bet.
Yes.
Is that a question or a statement?
It's a question because there's a question mark after.
Okay.
So I think they can make the run to playoffs. I don't think they can make the run to finals. I for sure don't think they can make the run to semifinals or Worlds. But you know, if they make playoffs
is doable though.
If they make playoffs after being 10th last split and starting so poorly this split, that's great, right? Especially because they actually changed up some of the roster, and then great, now you actually have something that you're building towards. That I think would be very exciting alone for the team.
Yeah, I agree. All right, that is going to do it for this episode of The Dive. We had a long break from the LCS due to Rift Rivals, but tune in this weekend because we're going to pick it right back up where we left off. Going to have some hype games. Liquid versus Cloud9, going to be one of the early ones on Saturday. Definitely tune in. Countdown starts 1:30.
See you then.